Excited to have a conversation with Annie Bailey. She is a former D1 athlete, played lacrosse at Colorado. She is a special, unique talent from a perspective of taking what she learned in sports and transition that into real life. She's a COO of Equity Partners at Rise Sports Advisory, and that's helping athletes garner generational wealth, not just a check, but generational wealth, and helping them with business ownership. And also, she also is part of a multifamily office. And so when you look at her experience in playing sports and then making that transition and helping athletes understand how to make that transition from a financial and wealth perspective, you are the perfect person to be having this conversation with today, because we're in a crazy world where there's a lot of resources for these athletes, and who's helping them understand how to manage their finances, who's helping them understand what not just the short term, but the long term vision should look like. And so, Annie, welcome to the Intangibles podcast. Excited to have you.
Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here and honored. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Well, before we get into what you do now, I want to go back and just, go back to your upbringing, how you grew up, what made you so competitive to want to play lacrosse. I think about lacrosse being this East Coast thing where it's super competitive, and they've been doing it for a long time out that way. And now it's made its way across the country. And I think the South is probably the last place that we hit. So take me back to your upbringing and some of your experiences.
Yeah. So, born and raised in a very small town in Indiana. It's, about 30 minutes away from, I think it's the second biggest city in Indiana. So, born and raised here, pretty small family, just an older brother, just me and him and our parents. And, as far as, my childhood and my upbringing, it was great. Sports have been a part of my life since as long as I can remember. My brother was on the swim team, so I joined the swim team when I turned 4, and, was out there, had no business swimming in meets and things like that, hanging onto the side of the pool. But I wanted to, be just like my big brother and start competing from a young age. So started, on swim team, and just kind of the sports world opened up for me from there. My brother will be 5th generation in a family business that my dad is currently the president of. So, hard work and understanding the value of a dollar has always been incredibly important to me, and a huge part of my childhood, just understanding the dedication and what goes into running a business. From my childhood, I went to boarding school at Culver Academies. I don't know if you're familiar.
Yeah, very.
Yeah. So my dad went there. He went to boarding school there as well. My brother went there. So it was always in the family, but it was definitely our choice on if we wanted to go or not. And so I made the decision to go, which I will go to my grave saying it was the best decision I've ever made. It opened me up to just a whole new world. Coming from a small town in Indiana, there wasn't much diversity. Everyone, for the most part, looked like me. There was not many sports outside of your normal football, basketball, baseball, swim team, things like that. And so I went there for 4 years, was able to be exposed to people from all over the world and different cultures, different sports. Our fencing team was nationally ranked, played lacrosse, rode horses there, was able to ride in an inaugural parade for the president through that. So lots and lots of great experiences. And then from there, earned a scholarship to be on the first Division I team at the University of Colorado, which was an experience just completely separate from anything you would expect, but amazing nonetheless. So, from there, graduated, came back home, and entered the real world. So Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think about the boarding school. My daughter just asked me the other day if she can go to,
Oh yeah.
a boarding school, and I'm thinking like, no way. But as you talk about the experiences and being able to, be around different cultures and things like that, why do you think that why do you think that was so important for you and what you were able to learn out of that experience to do what you're doing now?
Well, I think it just taught me at a very young age. I mean, high school years are incredibly formative years. So, being in a place where my parents, they're amazing. They're, great mentors for me. We have a great relationship, but being able to stand on my own 2 feet and start learning what I believe in, and what type of people I want to associate myself with versus not, that started at the age of like 14. So, it was an amazing opportunity. And outside of that, at Culver, the girls' side of the school is a leadership academy. So you're also learning leadership skills and holding leadership positions as a high schooler, learning, what leadership styles work for some people, what doesn't work. And so I think it showed me that there's this big giant world out there, and there's a lot of amazing places not only to go travel and visit and see, but just a lot more than just where I'm from. And my parents have always encouraged, like right now my parents are in Fiji, so they're traveling all over, and they understand the value of seeing the world too. But it taught me a lot of leadership and a lot about who I am really, really early on in my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, you go on and you go on to Colorado as a D1 lacrosse player. Let's kind of jump into that mindset. What did that experience really teach you about how athletes think and operate?
Yes, a lot. Not, so being the first year that it was Division I, we did not have seniority at all. We were 28 freshmen that are exploring the college world on their own, with, just what comes with going to college, and especially being in Colorado, it's known
sounds like some stories are in there.
Yes, I definitely have quite a few stories for a different time. So yes, navigating that and understanding, if you were out too late, you still had to be up at 6 a.m. for practice. And then after 5 hours of practice, then you had to go to class. And then after your 4 hours of classes, then you had to go to study tables. And then, it was, time management was huge. You had to have amazing time management. You had to have amazing discipline, and just a really strong work ethic. Also on that front, I had a horrible injury my freshman year. I got a femoral stress fracture, and that was awful. I was on crutches for 12 weeks at this giant university my freshman year of school. Being away from home with a horrible injury was, really difficult. And then also adding in, I was like approaching the starting lineup, and then you get this injury, and that just totally throws you off. So having to overcome a lot of like confidence rebuilding, and just, knowing I could do it. I could have easily transferred and gone to a D3 school and had a lot more success, but I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. And I'm really glad that I stuck it out. So it was a lot quickly, but it taught me a lot about, like I said, the discipline and time management, and waking up every day and just continuing to do it, even if it was hard.
When you think about like what you had to go through and how you had to manage that, what do you think athletes miss early on about that mental performance of being able to work through those things and having the tools in the toolbox to actually get through it a little bit smoother? And again, it's all hard, no matter how, I've been through a lot of injuries, 8 surgeries, and, I know I still relied on my mental toughness to get through it. And it wasn't until later, excuse me, it wasn't until later that I started, developing skills to manage my anxiety, my negative thoughts and things like that. So what do you think young athletes miss early on about, the importance of that skill set as you enter, especially when you enter college, knowing that it's very high demand on your body?
I think that part of it is when you compete at a Division I level or any collegiate level, really, D3, D2, whatever you are, you're used to being a really good athlete. And that becomes part of your identity. And then if anything goes wrong, I mean, you see it with professional athletes all the time. It's their whole identity. And if that goes wrong, you have to really learn how to navigate that quickly. And I think sometimes maybe it's not resources being available or not understanding that it's okay to admit that you need the resource. I think that's a big thing a lot is, well, if I'm talking to a therapist, then that means that, I'm this and this and this. And that's not the case at all.
Right.
It's a complete rewiring of your brain when you're not excelling in your sport and that's all you've ever known, or when your sport comes to an end. And so I think part of it is it's really hard to admit that to yourself, but also, maybe just not fully understanding the resources that are always available or how to go about utilizing that resource.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Got to, but it's that having that self-awareness early on to know, how to use a resource. We're not going to have all the answers around it, but it's the self-awareness to know yourself, to know, what you need to then utilize the resources that are available, because the colleges have a lot of resources to make sure that those things are available for you. But, we as athletes sometimes, have these blinders on where we don't know how to tap into those resources.
Yes.
Yeah.
We at Rise actually have a mental health coach on staff available to our clients to utilize, but also even our staff to utilize. He does monthly sessions with our team to understand how we can help navigate, if a client is going through something tough, but also just a reminder to take care of yourself and check in with yourself. And it's okay to reach out to the village that's around you. So yeah, mental health is incredibly important, and you're seeing it more and more pop up with things that are happening to professional athletes, and it's devastating.
It is. It really is. Well, now I want to get to the crazy narrative that's out there. When I retired from the NFL, 75% of guys were broke or divorced within 5 years.
Yes.
And that's a large number, and it's why I do what I do. Why it's my why and my passion in the work that I'm doing today. But with this narrative that, athletes struggles financially after their career, why do you think that still exists?
I think that for a long time, they were expected to just be athletes, just go out and play football, just go out and focus on your game, whatever your game is. And no one was thinking about the fact that their career when it comes to their sport is incredibly short. I think the average NFL contract career is 3 years, which is crazy.
3.2 years. Yeah.
And then you look at the lifestyle that a lot of these athletes are living, and there's not much left over. And then sports are their identity, and that's gone. So now what, And so I think it's a broken narrative. I think the shift has started happening a little bit, which is amazing to see.
Yeah.
And I think it's very important that the shift happens now that we have NIL and these kids are making sometimes millions of dollars when they're 18 years old, to understand how to reinvest the money or, put it into a foundation or just put it to work for them so that it's growing and still there for them, while we're exploring what is that identity after sports is over. What do you want to do? Who do you want to be when sports are over? That's a narrative that wasn't being talked about, I think, for a long time. And I think LeBron was one of the first ones, that changed that narrative, which has been really great to see.
Yeah, I agree with that. With taking his team and getting them through school and getting them educated on areas that can help support him and his career and his dreams and aspirations. I thought it was a tremendous job by him. But as we think about this, where we are today, where do you still think the breakdown is happening?
I think it's that a lot of athletes have trouble thinking about or processing that at some point it is going to come to an end. They don't want to think that forward. Right. And it totally is understandable, but I think that's where the breakdown's happening, because they'll deal with it tomorrow, and then tomorrow comes and they're not ready for it.
3, 2, 1. Parents, the recruiting process is one of the biggest decisions you'll ever face for your child. And talent isn't enough. Coaches are looking for the intangibles like composure, coachability, communication, and leadership. And that's what Team Q measures. Get clear insights into your child's intangibles so they stand out when it matters most. Go to teamq.io and help your athlete unlock greatness.
Yeah. So in the work that you're doing now, how do you communicate that with your young athletes and your older athletes, with from an education environment and a mindset that, hey, it's going to end, and how do you train yourself to still stand on, 10 toes down in the business that you're in, but also have a mindset that can help you once you make that transition?
Mm-hmm. It's a slow, steady drip with education. So education is huge to us. It's one of the biggest things that means the most to us as a firm. But when we're starting with an NIL kid who's, got 1 or 2 years left in college, our main focus is to get them set up structurally. Are your taxes in good shape? Are you doing these basic things that is setting you up to then be prepared when the big check comes, whenever you get drafted or go to the next level? But along the way, we're having mentorship sessions, and we're exposing them to different deal flow opportunities that have come across our plate, just to start seeing like, hey, have you thought about, are you interested in real estate? Or, do you think that that's something that you would want to lean into? Or are you super interested in giving back to the community that you're from? In what way, would you like to give back to the world? And, have you thought about a business? Do you have a business idea that's written on a napkin that we can slowly start talking about, so that it's not, we're water blasting them with information and it's overwhelming. We're letting them get bite-sized pieces slowly over time, so that they're ready when the career comes to an end, when their playing career comes to an end. And, we have case studies that we refer to often. Jaylon Smith was our first client. He was, he played at Notre Dame, then played for the Cowboys, most notably was, a Pro Bowler. And he is a serial entrepreneur. Like, he just recently opened up a restaurant on Notre Dame's campus, and he has an insurance company, and he has this and he has that. And he'll come in and tell his story of how he got to where he was with the help of Rise. And I think that's helpful too, because sometimes it takes someone who's actually lived it with them to get them to understand. Sometimes if I'm telling them, or someone on our team who hasn't been a professional athlete, it's in one ear, out the other, because they've got a million people telling them their opinions. So sometimes it's helpful when someone who's actually gone through it can speak to their experience as well.
Right. Well, you guys you're seeing the good, the bad, the ugly early on with a lot of these athletes. And so when I think about how we train to get to D1, to get to professional, it's almost the same model has to start to happen right now from a financial, catching them in high school and start that slow drip, because, if you wait too long, now the faucet is coming at you, and then now you shut down because you don't know how to manage, you don't know how to process all of this information. So starting that slow drip early, is what I'm taking from this is really important.
Yes.
And it's not just when you start making the money, it's preparing you so when you do start making the money that you can make smoother transitions and decisions.
Yes, absolutely. And also, you're prepared. You understand how to read a budget and how to read, these financial terms that would have otherwise been completely foreign, which a lot of people don't understand. And I mean, you came from that world. A lot of people don't even have budgets to understand what's going out versus what's coming in, or don't understand how much is actually taxed from their paycheck, or, all these things that you just don't think about. You see what your contract is and you're like, oh yeah, I've made it. And that's unfortunately not always the case. So, yeah, our job is to prepare them as much as we can for what reality looks like.
Yeah. So what, thinking about the, some of the bad opportunities that kids fall into, what do you see as one of the biggest mistakes that young athletes make early on with money?
Lack of budgeting, and just not understanding you maybe don't need to have 3 cars now, or you don't need to own a home now. But also there's so many people in their ear asking for things or asking for investments into businesses that potentially aren't the best place for them to invest their money. So, sometimes we are the bad guy and we come in and we say, not right now.
We need
him. He can't invest in the car wash that you would want him to, or whatever that situation is. And then educating them on why it's not a good. So we're not making the decision for them. We are educating them so that they're empowered to make that decision on their own. And when they're out in the world, they can start navigating that without us. We're always there for them, but they understand what's a good deal and what's a bad deal and just how to navigate that.
Can you give us one example why it's so important for, athletes to understand why the cash flow piece of it is so important to know what that looks like when you walk out these, when you finish the sport, that cash flow is king when it comes to things you want to do. And can you give us a quick example around that?
Yeah. Absolutely. So if you have an athlete who, they made 50 million in their career and they lived a certain lifestyle that matched the millions that were coming in, they've gotten accustomed to that lifestyle. And if they've spent a lot, but also only invested with a financial advisor, there's no other cash flowing opportunities once that paycheck stops. So their only option is to go tap into the funds that are sitting with a financial advisor. And then by the time they're 70, 80, there's nothing left because they wanted to maintain that lifestyle. So for us, it's understanding, okay, how, a realistic view of what your lifestyle should look like and what you want it to look like and what you want to maintain it as when the career ends, and then what your interests are. And how can we make that cash flowing? Is it, do you want to get into fashion? Are you into music? Are you really into franchising? Do you want your hands in a little bit of everything? So it's sitting down and having, sometimes 8-hour strategy sessions, like full day strategy sessions, just pulling who they are out of them and learning what that looks like, so that if they're spending $700,000 a year, where's that money going to come from when their paycheck is over? Is it 4 businesses that are operating that's going to cover that? And then you can pass on those businesses to your children and that can be part of your legacy. Is it philanthropic? Is it, so that's huge for us, is understanding what cash flow looks like, and us, helping them build those cash flowing opportunities.
Yeah. You guys have ownership in your in your description on things. And is that, when you think about that cash flow, is that part of your strategies, and is making sure that your athletes also have ownership in places so that it is another way of getting the cash flow versus just what you've already have in equities?
Yes, and again, each athlete is different. They all have different, risk that they're okay with. And of course, interests and things like that. But we want them to own their legacy. It should be theirs. And because they've built this amazing life, they, have amazing careers on the playing field, but let's recreate that and help you own something that you can pass down, and it's legacies and multi-generational wealth, not just ending with them, but it's going down to hopefully their kids and their kids' kids, and so on and so forth for years and years and years to come.
Yeah. And you said the key word there for me is like that generational wealth. We hear people talk about having generational wealth, but what does that actually mean for athletes? What does that really look like to have generational wealth?
I think it's having a succession plan and knowing that this life is not forever. So how are you pouring into yourself to then in turn pour into the next generation, whether it's your kids or your nieces and nephews, or, your neighbor that you just have a really great relationship? Like, what do you want your legacy to look like, so that it doesn't stop with you? And a succession plan is something that we were just recently talking about it in one of our staff meetings, because that you have to be incredibly intentional about building a succession plan, because it's one of those things that unfortunately you think, I can handle that tomorrow. And if you're not intentional about it and tomorrow never comes, there is no succession plan. Even if you've built all these things that you've put into place, like it just ends. There's no knowledge transfer. So knowledge transfer is a huge piece of building that generational wealth.
Absolutely. And I think that, you said what I wanted for everyone to hear is that being intentional about creating those succession plans, because we can make all the money you want to make in sports, but at the end of the day, there's your top tier guys who are making like that generational, like that top 10 to 15% of guys. And then there's the rest. And how do we get the rest to understand how important it is to really have a real strategic plan to set up some generational wealth? And so excited to hear you guys, the work you guys are doing. It's awesome. It's recent for me over the last 3 years to really start thinking about the family office space. And so it was foreign. It's always been a financial advisor. But the more and more you dig into like what, you get into the entrepreneurial world, and you realize that there needs to be a full umbrella to support, to be able to see into all the things that you're doing, so that you know how to tax plan right, how to, set your businesses up. So from a tax perspective as well, that helps your family. And so there's a lot of things that goes into it that I think is very foreign to not just athletes, but a lot of people. And so so excited to have this conversation with you, and you really diving into it and explaining it to us So with that being said, we're going to take a quick pause, and we're going to do a quick 2-minute drill. Sorry, I'm bringing you into the football world, do a 2-minute drill before halftime. So I'm going to give you some rapid fire questions here, and you just let it flow.
Okay, let's do it.
All right. Ready for this? All right.
I'm ready.
All right. Biggest money mistake athletes make early. I think I already asked you that question. So
biggest money mistake, overspending and not having a budget in place.
All right. What's something athletes don't think about until it's too late?
The next generation and, the cash flow in businesses. Where's it going to come from when it all comes to an end?
All right. What separates financial successful athletes from the rest?
Discipline.
All right, I like it. What's a sign an athlete is thinking? What's a sign an athlete is thinking long term?
They are seeking to educate themselves and open to learning and putting themselves in a room full of people who are smarter than them.
Hey, I always say if I'm the smartest person in the room, I'm getting out of that room. So
Absolutely. You should never be the smartest person.
What's one habit that athletes can build early to have a successful wealth journey? I guess I would say.
Saying no.
I think there's a book around that.
I think so. Saying no is difficult for everyone, but I think for, when you have that many people in your ear, you have to learn to say no early on.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Last one for you. What's one advice you would give a rookie on day one in having a conversation about wealth?
Get educated and build a network of people you trust wholeheartedly.
It's important. It's important. Awesome. Those are great. Man, even just like thinking about some of these things and thinking about the things I wish I would have known early in my life, things would look a lot different. And don't get me wrong, I figured it out, but I had to take some lumps along the way. And so having someone like yourself who played the sport, who understands, the intensity it takes, but then also to transition that into what you're doing now and have athletes able to listen to you because you've also been there. You've gone through the injuries, you've gone through the tough practices, and now you're helping guys and helping young women to understand like the importance of their financial future. And so, this is getting me excited about, young athletes really hearing this conversation because it's so, 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 so important.
It's so important. And I think the younger you can listen, like high school athletes, we go and speak to high schools sometimes because it's never too early to start learning. And the more you can equip yourself before the big dollars come, you're going to be set up for success that a lot of their peers don't have the ability to have, I think.
Yeah. All right. Well, we're going to jump back in here. You've seen a lot of athletes make the transition out of the game. What do you think the hardest part for athletes when they make that transition and they know it's done?
I think just that it's been the biggest piece of their life and sometimes the most constant piece in their life for so long. It's finding that identity of who they are when the sport is over. Who are you without your sport when your sport has been a part of your world since you were a little kid? Because that everybody's starting to play when they're like 4 years old sometimes, and just identifying who you're going to be after that, I think is hard. Yeah.
So you said identity. What do you think about the structure and then also the purpose has been the two other important parts of understanding that and learning that about yourself when you transition out?
Yes. So structure is huge. Maintaining, a schedule and a routine. And if you're not going into the office every day, what are you filling your day with? What does your day look like? How are you going about that? Because I think it's really easy to just, sit and scroll on your phone or go spend money or go do these things that you used to do on your downtime, but now you have downtime all the time. So how are you going to maintain structure? And purpose was the other. Is that the other word you meant?
Purpose, yeah.
Yeah. So, and purposes, I think that goes hand in hand with identity, because if you feel like your sport was your purpose, then what does your purpose look like now? So, a lot of guys, it's philanthropy, and giving back to their community in some way through, their foundations and impact investing. That's amazing. That's one of my favorite parts of the job, is helping them unlock that part of themselves. But I think, the structure and finding your purpose and finding out just who you want to be and what you want to fill your day with is huge.
Yeah. I think this, when you think about people's money, and you're handing your money over to someone. So I'm sure there's a huge responsibility in building a relationship.
Yes.
And so when you guys are building those relationships and communicating with these athletes, what are you guys preparing them around mentally to what journey that they're about to be on? Not just about financial, but like their lifelong journey of like working with you guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, relationships is huge, because earlier when I mentioned building a trusted network, that consists of people who aren't just yes men to you, because trust and having someone who makes you feel good are very two different things.
Can we say that again? Let's go say that again.
Yeah, trust, and
because it's important. It's important that we have so many yes people around a lot of our young athletes. So I just want you to say that again.
Yeah. So there are a lot of yes men. Athletes are very used to being told yes and being welcome in any place, in any room, because they're celebrities. They're given these opportunities, and coming along with that, they don't often get turned down, or sometimes there's people who don't have their best interest at heart. So trust and someone who's making you feel good are very two different things. You have to have someone who's truly trusted to give you the good, bad, the ugly, and is still going to stand with you and get you through it next to you. So that is key.
Amen. All right.
Yeah,
she's preaching over here.
That's important. Yeah.
Well, Annie, you lead at such a high level, and you can contribute that to your parents. You can contribute that back to going to a boarding school and then playing D1 ball. But not just leading in your company, but also as a mother. So how has motherhood shaped how you think about success, legacy, and how you nurture the athletes that you're working with?
Motherhood totally changed me. For the better, but it just opens up a different part of you. I think whether you're a mother or a father, a new level of patience, a new level of worry, a new level of, just taking care of someone, a new mental load that you're carrying at all times, and just a new way that you see the world. When someone tells you bad news about something happening before you have kids, it's a totally different feeling once you're considering your kids now. But I think that also extends into, you have a way of viewing all relationships, because I was listening to something on social media a couple months ago, and it was saying, when you become a mother, you become a parent, you no longer can give 100% of yourself to anything, because you are stretched thin, but you have unlocked all of these new parts of you that now you have more to give. So even if it's not necessarily 100%, it's more than you were giving in the first place, because of the way you just view everything and internalize things and process things and just see the world in general. So it's been amazing. And at the start of in January, we were going through and we had each member on our team give a word that they wanted to focus on for 2026 of their personal life and also in their work life. And my word for both was nurture, because I want everyone around me to feel like they can come to me and I'm going to wrap my arms around them and still give them what they need, but in an empathetic and nurturing way. So it's been quite the journey, but I think motherhood has made me into a much better person.
Yeah. And so, and all those things carry over to how you work with your clients.
Yes.
The wisdom, so I think motherhood and fatherhood gives you that perspective that, we wouldn't get if we didn't have kids. And I'm not saying that people who don't have kids don't have that perspective. But it's a different perspective of how you lean into, the things that you're doing, especially when you know your purpose.
100%. I feel so protective of our clients. Like I go, full mama bear mode. Like, no, you're not gonna take advantage of this situation. You're like, I've been bodyguard Annie with 6'4" athletes, and like little me is elbows out, making sure that no one is getting to them. And yeah, it's really important to me that they feel protected and safe and that I'm trustworthy. That's huge to me.
When you think about those things, what does success mean now versus earlier in your career?
Success to me is having harmony for myself at home and in the workplace, and understanding it's not always going to be balanced, that it's going to ebb and flow. Sometimes I have to give way more to work. Sometimes I have to give way more to my family. But being able to spend that intentional time in both places, it's also incredibly important to me that my sons growing up, they grow up understanding what a successful mother looks like, and seeing that you can have both, and seeing a woman having an amazing career and being fierce and being confident, because I think that for a long time that was a narrative that didn't get told, even though there have been women trailblazing since the inception of time. So that's incredibly important to me and what success looks like for me and my family as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, we get ready to wrap up here, so I'm gonna give you one tough one to think about, and it may be really easy for you. If you had to go back and talk to your younger self, 16-year-old self, what would you say to her?
I would say a lot of things. I was someone who did not know what I wanted to do. I hated school. I had no clear path for what my future would look like. So I think I would go back to my 16-year-old self and just say it's okay. It's okay to not know, and it's okay to fail, and it's okay to do things that you don't like, because that's going to morph you and mold you into the successful person that you are today. And just kind of give that girl a hug, because it was a lot, it's a lot to carry. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, my last question for you, and again, looking at your journey, how you were raised and things you've done in your life, if you had to think about and give me a couple intangibles that have made Annie who she is today, what would you say they are?
A very strong work ethic, serving, being a humble servant, never letting my ego get in the way, and always direct communication, even when it's hard. Communication is key. I think those are the things that have gotten me to where I am today. And without those, I don't know what my world would look like.
Wow. Annie, this has been fantastic. Thank you for the servant that you are. Thank you for the vulnerability that you've shared here. And also thank you for looking out for the next generation of athletes and helping them understand what their future could look like versus what it is today. So being a visionary and being a person of genuineness that your athletes, you can tell why they trust you. And so thank you for what you guys do at Rise. I'm really excited to just continue to follow you guys and learn more about what the work that you guys are doing. But this has been awesome. So hopefully someone who listens to this can share this with their kid, or even for a parent to learn some things that can help their young athlete maneuver in this wild, wild west that we're in. And so this has been fun. I really appreciate you joining me on an Intangible podcast.
No, thank you so much. This is amazing. Your podcast is amazing. You're leading the way for filling the gaps that need filled. So I'm honored to have been a guest. Thank you so much for having me, and let's just keep building. Let's keep doing it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.